Iraqi troops backed by the United States are ramping up attacks against ISIS in the battle to retake Mosul. A new wave of airstrikes and shelling has started targeting militants near Iraq's second largest city.
Troops have made successful gains in villages surrounding Mosul despite suicide bombings and counterattacks from ISIS. CBS News foreign correspondent Holly Williams is in Erbil, Iraq. Holly, can you take us through the latest and where the battle for Mosul stands, at least at this point?
Iraqi and Kurdish forces are edging closer towards the city proper of Mosul. They've retaken a lot of towns and villages, but it's been fairly slow going. Remember, they're up against ISIS suicide car bombs. That's vehicles packed full of explosives and driven at high speed towards the front line. ISIS deploys suicide bombers. They've dug tunnels underneath the villages and towns that they're trying to defend. It's really the definition of asymmetrical warfare. The US coalition, and to a certain extent its allies on the ground in Iraq, have all the high technology. They have airstrikes, they have helicopter gunships, they have high-tech artillery. But what ISIS has is some men, at least, who are willing to die, to blow themselves up for this cause. And remember so far that most of the towns and villages that have been retaken were uninhabited. Their residents fled 2 years ago when ISIS first blitzed across northern Iraq. It is going to be much tougher going when those ground forces reach the urban area of Mosul, where we think there are still around 1 million or so civilians.
All right, and there's a lot of talk about how the U.S. airstrikes are not going to help them so much when they get into the densely populated city like Mosul. Talk about the U.S. role. What do you see down there?
Well, when you talk to the US military, and they've certainly said this to us, they say that their role is to advise and assist the Iraqis. What do they mean by that? You know, they mean the US coalition airstrikes, which have been enormously important to pushing ISIS back and killing their fighters. They mean the use of US artillery, and they mean, for instance, the Joint Command Center, which has been set up just south of Mosul with both US and Iraqi officers participating there. But we have spent a lot of the last week on the front lines, and we've seen US troops there. Now, we haven't seen them firing on ISIS, but last week we did see coalition troops from a European country actively firing on ISIS. So certainly for the non-military layperson, the line between advising and combat can sometimes seem like a very fine distinction.
Yeah, I can imagine. What sort of impact is this having on the ground, in the villages, the people that you've come in contact with?
Well, as I said, most of the towns and villages that we've been in with Kurdish and Iraqi forces, you know, have been uninhabited for the last 2 years. So the people of those places have been refugees for the last 2 years, and obviously they very much want to go home as quickly as possible. The big question really surrounds the civilians inside Mosul. Remember that when ISIS first took Mosul 2 years ago, many people inside Mosul went out and cheered in the streets. They welcomed them. Why did they do that? Well, because Mosul is a majority Sunni Muslim city, and many people there were simply fed up with the Iraqi government in Baghdad, which is dominated by Shiite Muslims. Those people in Mosul have now been living under ISIS for 2 years. They've experienced the brutality and the barbaric violence. So presumably many of them, if not all of them, have changed their minds. But when those forces, those Iraqi ground forces, get into the city, are those people going to rise up and support this offensive? That's what we're going to find out in the next few months.
In the next few months. All right, Holly Williams, thank you.